My name is Catherine Ashworth, and what I'm about to share with you is something I never expected to experience, let alone live to tell. It happened on the morning of May 14th, 1989, a day that was supposed to be one of joy and celebration, a day when my entire family would gather to witness the baptism of my grandson, Thomas. I had been looking forward to it for months. I had my dress carefully picked out, a small gift wrapped and sitting in the passenger seat beside me as I drove. I should have arrived at the church, taken my usual seat in the front row, and watched as the pastor gently placed the water over my grandson's head. Instead, that day became the moment that forever changed the way I understood repentance, forgiveness, and the love of God. I was a lifelong churchgoer. Every Sunday I sat in the same pew, sang the same hymns, and listened to the same scriptures being read. I believed in God, I prayed, and I tried to live a decent life. I wasn't a perfect person, but I always thought of myself as good enough. I had never stolen, never committed any serious crime, never intentionally hurt anyone. I had my flaws, of course, my moments of impatience, my quiet judgments, my little lies when it seemed easier than telling the truth. But I never saw myself as someone in desperate need of repentance. Repentance, to me, was for people who had committed great sins, those who had turned away from God. Not someone like me, a woman who had spent her life believing she was walking the right path. That morning, I dressed in a soft lavender dress with lace trimming, carefully pinning my hair up in curls. I looked at myself in the mirror and felt content. Richard, my husband of 40 years, was still sipping his coffee when I kissed his cheek. He was driving separately since he had to pick up our daughter and grandson. "Don't be late," I told him with a playful smirk. He only chuckled, waving me off. The house smelled like fresh toast and butter as I grabbed my purse, Bible, and keys before heading out. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining, the breeze was soft, and the road ahead felt peaceful. I remember humming a hymn as I drove, one I had sung in church countless times before. My heart was light. I was thinking about how proud I was of my daughter, about how fast Thomas was growing up. I thought about how beautiful the baptism would be, how lovely the church looked this time of year with all the flowers in bloom. Everything felt perfect. But life has a way of changing in an instant. As I approached an intersection, I glanced at the traffic light. It had just turned green, so I eased my foot onto the gas pedal. That was the last conscious decision I made. The next moment happened too fast to process. Out of nowhere, a red pickup truck barreled toward me at full speed, running the red light. I didn't even have time to scream. There was just a deafening crash, the sound of metal crumpling, glass shattering, and my body being thrown forward violently. My head snapped against the steering wheel. Then silence. At first, I thought I was simply unconscious, that maybe I was still inside my car. But as my awareness returned, I realized something was wrong. The pain was gone. The noise of the street, the voices, the sirens, they had all vanished. I was no longer in my car, no longer anywhere familiar. I was somewhere else entirely. I found myself in a vast, endless space, neither completely dark nor bright, but filled with a presence I cannot put into words. It was as if the very air was alive, pulsating with something beyond human comprehension. I felt weightless, as though my body no longer existed, Yet I was fully aware, more aware than I had ever been in my entire life. I looked down, expecting to see my dress, my hands, something familiar, but there was nothing, just the sensation of being. And then I turned around and I saw it. A being of light stood before me, radiating a presence so powerful that I could do nothing but stare. It was unlike anything I had ever imagined. The light was not blinding, yet it was brighter than the sun. It was not warmth in the way we know it, yet it filled me with the deepest sense of comfort. And then I heard a voice, not with my ears, but deep within my soul. "Catherine," it spoke, "are you ready to see?" The voice was neither male nor female, neither loud nor quiet. It was simply there, filling every part of me. I wanted to respond, but before I could, the space around me shifted, and suddenly, I was no longer in that vast expanse. I was watching something that, at first, I didn't understand. It was my life, not just random moments, but every decision, every interaction, every word I had ever spoken. It unfolded like a living tapestry before me, moving so fast and yet so detailed that I could feel each moment as if I were experiencing it all over again. But this was not just a recollection of events. I was seeing my life through the eyes of those I had affected. I saw my childhood, my teenage years, my time as a young wife and mother. I saw moments of kindness, times when I had comforted a friend, helped a stranger, prayed for someone in need. But then, something changed. I saw moments I had long forgotten, times when my words had wounded, when my pride had pushed people away, when my actions or inactions had caused pain. I saw the time I dismissed my daughter's tears when she needed comfort. I saw the time I ignored a woman in my church who had been sitting alone, too wrapped up in my own thoughts to notice her pain. I saw every moment I had judged someone in my heart, every time I had harbored resentment, every opportunity to love that I had let slip away. And then I felt it. I didn't just see my actions, I felt their impact. When I had spoken in anger, I felt the sadness it caused. When I had withheld kindness, I felt the emptiness left in its place. It wasn't punishment, it was understanding. A truth so raw, so undeniable, that I could do nothing but weep. "I never knew," I whispered. "I never realized." The being of light, who had been silent until now, finally spoke again. "Catherine, you believed that repentance was only for the wicked. But do you see now? Repentance is not about condemnation. It is about transformation." I trembled, but I thought I was a good person. There is no one righteous, not even one. But the mercy of God is boundless for those who seek it. Suddenly, I saw something incredible. As I stood in that space of revelation, feeling the weight of my life, something like golden waves began to ripple outward from me. They moved across the space, stretching into eternity, touching places I could not see. And in that moment I understood, true repentance is not just about seeking forgiveness. It is about changing reality. It is about allowing God to heal, restore, and renew not just ourselves, but the world around us. I turned to the being of light, overwhelmed with emotion. "Is it too late?" I asked. "Can I still change?" The answer was firm, yet filled with love. "You have always had the choice." And with that, the world around me shifted again, and I felt something pulling me back, fast, forceful, undeniable. As the force pulled me back, I felt a strange resistance in my spirit, as though something within me wanted to remain in that place of truth and light. But before I could process it, I was no longer in that vast, endless space. Instead, I was in a new realm, one that took my breath away. I found myself standing in a place so beautiful that words seem inadequate to describe it. The air was filled with music, not from instruments, but from the very atmosphere itself. It was as if the air carried melodies of praise, of love, of holiness. Every blade of grass shimmered. Every drop of water reflected a light that was not from the sun, but from something far greater. I realized that I was no longer alone. Beside me stood the being of light, the angel, though I knew instinctively that this was not just any angel. This was a messenger of God, a guide sent to show me what I had never understood in my earthly life. The angel gestured ahead, and as I turned my gaze forward, I saw something that brought me to my knees. Before me stretched a vast expanse, like a great city of light, yet not a city in the way we think of it. It was alive, moving, shifting, yet constant in its glory. At the center of it, seated upon a throne that radiated pure holiness, was a figure that I could not fully behold. His presence was so overwhelming that I could barely lift my eyes, yet I knew without a doubt it was Jesus. Tears filled my eyes as I fell to the ground. I could feel his love wrapping around me, not as a distant concept, but as a tangible force. It filled every broken place in me, every regret, every sorrow. I expected to feel judgment, to feel the weight of all I had done wrong, but instead, I felt the most profound mercy I had ever known. "Catherine," Jesus spoke, and his voice was unlike anything I had ever heard. It was not just sound, it was life itself. "You have seen the truth of your heart. But now, I will show you what happens when a soul truly repents." As he spoke, the space around me shifted again, and I found myself standing in what looked like a grand hall, filled with light and movement. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then, the angel beside me pointed toward something in the distance. "Look," the angel said. "This is what happens in heaven when a single soul repents." I turned my gaze and saw what appeared to be a great gathering. Multitudes of angelic beings were present, each one shining with a brilliance that was beyond earthly comparison. At the center of the gathering was something like a fountain, but instead of water, it poured out waves of golden light. As I watched, I realized that this light was connected to something beyond this place, something happening on earth. Then I saw it, a man kneeling in a small, dimly lit room, tears streaming down his face. He was praying, his voice shaking as he whispered words of repentance. I could see his heart, his true sorrow, his genuine desire to turn away from his past life. The moment his prayer of repentance left his lips, the golden light from the fountain in heaven surged outward, spreading like a wave of energy. The angels around the fountain erupted into praise, their voices rising in unison. It was not just a quiet celebration, it was a heavenly declaration of victory. I gasped, my hand covering my mouth. "Is this because of him?" The angel nodded. "This is what happens every time a soul truly repents." Tears streamed down my face as I watched the man continue to pray, unaware of the divine response unfolding around him. He was alone in his room, thinking no one could hear him. But here in this realm, his prayer had set off an explosion of joy. I turned to the angel, my voice trembling. Why have I never known this? Why have we never been told? The angel's expression was both sorrowful and understanding, because many do not truly believe in the power of repentance. They think it is a small thing, a simple act of confession. But true repentance shakes heaven itself. As I continued watching, the vision shifted and I saw a different scene. A woman, sitting in her car in a parking lot, gripping the steering wheel as she sobbed. She had just committed a sin she deeply regretted. Shame consumed her, and she thought to herself that she was beyond saving. But then she whispered, "God, I don't deserve your mercy, but please forgive me." The very moment those words left her lips, a ripple of golden light surged from her and into heaven. The same eruption of joy took place, the same angelic celebration. And then something else happened. The woman, who had been trembling in despair, suddenly gasped as peace filled her. She didn't understand what had happened, but I could see it clearly. Heaven had responded. Jesus turned to me then, his gaze piercing through to my soul. "This is what many do not understand," he said. "Repentance is not about punishment. It is about restoration. When a soul turns back to me, all of heaven moves to embrace them." I fell to my knees again, overwhelmed. "Lord," I whispered, "I never knew." Jesus extended his hand toward me. "Now you do, and now you must tell them." At that moment, I felt something shift in the very core of my being. I understood now. Repentance was not just about asking for forgiveness, it was about transformation. It was about returning to the embrace of God, about allowing His mercy to not only forgive but to restore. It was never about condemnation, it was about love. Suddenly, I felt a powerful pull, as if something was drawing me away from this realm. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay in that presence, to bask in that love forever. But I knew, deep down, that my time there had ended. I had been given a mission. A truth had been revealed to me, and now I had to share it. The light around me faded, and in an instant, I felt myself gasping for air. I was back. My body was in a hospital bed, machines beeping, doctors and nurses standing over me in shock. My husband was there, tears in his eyes as he gripped my hand. "Catherine," he choked out, "we thought we lost you." I blinked, still feeling the warmth of heaven's embrace, and I knew I had been sent back for a reason. From that day forward, I dedicated my life to telling others what I had seen. I no longer saw repentance as a duty, but as the most incredible gift ever given. I wanted the world to know that when they cry out to God, when they turn back to Him with all sincerity, heaven does not sit silent. Heaven rejoices, angels celebrate, and most importantly, Jesus Himself welcomes them with open arms. To anyone listening to my story, I plead with you, do not wait. Do not let shame, doubt, or fear keep you from turning back to God. No matter what you have done, no matter how far you think you have fallen, His mercy is greater than your mistakes. Repentance is not a sign of weakness. It is the most powerful act of faith you can take. And when you do, I promise you, heaven itself will move in response. Jesus is waiting for you. Will you answer his call before it's too late?